When a society turns on itself, we usually look for a human reason. We assume civil wars are driven by borders, politics, or religion. In anthropology, this is called the cultural marker hypothesis. It's the idea that collective violence requires deep ideological or cultural differences to take root. But looking exclusively at human culture might be blinding us to a deeper trigger. We have to ask if civil war is actually possible without any human concepts at all. To test that, we can look at the Ngogo chimpanzees of Uganda. For decades, this was the largest known wild chimpanzee group on Earth, a massive, unified community of nearly 200 individuals. Watching this enormous family function, and eventually collapse, provides a rare window into our own origins. It forces us to consider if the capacity to violently fracture is rooted in our biological architecture. For 20 years, the Ngogo chimpanzees operated as a single, cohesive unit. They actively maintained their social web by grooming and patrolling together, constantly weaving interpersonal ties. Then, in 2015, scientists witnessed a 1 in 500-year anomaly. The social network began to tear itself in half. Over the next few years, this fracture escalated into a brutal primate civil war. It showed researchers that the physical snapping of social bonds can be just as destructive as any ideological divide. The collapse didn't happen in a vacuum. A population of 200 chimpanzees puts immense strain on the local environment, forcing members to intensely compete for limited fruit production and mating access. Under that pressure, the network lost the individuals holding its center. Over a short period, 5 adult males died, and the group went through a tense alpha male transition. Because these individuals had acted as social bridges, their absence severed the links across the community. The final blow arrived shortly after, when a severe respiratory epidemic swept through the forest. It killed 25 more chimpanzees, eroding whatever integrity the network had left. This chart from the researchers' social network analysis captures the breakdown. Look at row A. You can see the group transition from a single cohesive cluster in 2013 into 2 completely disconnected networks, now known as the Western and Central factions, by 2018. The chimpanzees didn't hold a vote or debate their differences. The community fractured entirely due to the mathematical collapse of everyday interpersonal links. The behavioral shift following the split was absolute. The newly formed groups stopped associating, established complete reproductive isolation, ending all mating between the factions. These spatial overlap maps in row B show the physical reality of the split. What used to be the safe, shared center of their unified territory rapidly segregated into heavily guarded, hostile borders. In the wild, chimpanzees are biologically wired to fear and attack outsiders to protect resources. Lethal aggression against foreign groups is a well-documented survival tactic. But because this specific network fractured from within, former lifelong friends were suddenly recategorized by their own biology as enemies. Driven by this new reality, the numerically smaller Western group began launching highly coordinated, lethal patrols into Central Territory. It reveals how us versus them is an incredibly fluid status. An ally can become an enemy based entirely on where they sit in the social network when the ties finally break. The data on the aftermath is grim. Looking at these charts tracking annual deaths, we see a massive spike after the 2018 fission. By 2024, the Western faction systematically killed at least 7 adult males and 17 infants from their former troop. These findings illustrate the relational dynamics hypothesis, the idea that shifting interpersonal ties and local rivalries are sufficient to generate collective violence. The Ngogo chimpanzees didn't need contrasting languages, religious doctrines, or political ideologies to go to war. The simple breakdown of their physical social network was biologically sufficient to spark lethal hostility. While we often blame modern wars on conflicting ideologies, this data suggests a more ancient vulnerability. It reveals that once the social web is torn, biology alone is enough to transform the familiar into the fatal.